yeah, we got to pay attention to this. And the ones that I think are going to make it really work well are the ones that can convey their brand attributes, their reason to believe it's the place to buy something.
Welcome to Shop Shock. We're two retail nerds exploring what life will look like after AI becomes fully integrated with the retail industry and consumers, maybe. I'm Deanne Campbell, store design operations and customer experience strategist.
I am Chuck Palmer. I'm a retail strategist and digital product manager. I work with retailers and brands to figure out how to make digital experiences easier and better for consumers.
Well, we have a shocker of the week that's really interesting. The more I dug into it, the more I laughed out loud, and that is Allbirds.
What the hell?
It's a rarity in the industry. We see a lot of retailers that are struggling that get out of the business, but very few get out of the business to get into another business completely that has nothing to do with retail.
Yeah, do you know what exactly they've now, just to sort of fill in the blank for people that might not be aware of this, Allbirds, a direct-to-consumer shoe brand.
Sustainable wool shoes was the basis of their premise.
Oh, yeah, okay. Kind of lost that part in their rhetoric. And I'll say this. They were one of the first direct-to-consumer online brands that opened stores. I was in Boston for a conference, and that's where they opened one of their first stores. It sort of looked like a store, but they only had like 4 SKUs, but they had them masked out in a way that made it seem like they had a wall of shoes. Yeah. And they didn't. I mean, they didn't really have that many varieties back then. And it was very confusing to look at. You know, like, do we really need to know that you're going out of business and you're doing this other thing? Are you trying to play off the Allbirds brand and newsworthiness in order to launch your other thing? It's confusing.
Well,
it's very confusing.
Struggling for a bit. I mean, like as you said, they were one of the first direct-to-consumer companies that opened stores. They were actually one of the first direct-to-consumer companies at all.
Mm-hmm.
Did an excellent job. I love their shoes. I still love their shoes because they are, to me, they're comfortable. They breathe. They're sustainable. I like their mission statement. I like the shoes, and they don't look like these big clunky runners that a lot of shoes are. So you can kind of wear them. They're dressier, for lack of a better term. So I'm kind of disappointed, but they have been struggling because they haven't really been innovative. They haven't changed their aesthetic that much. They've tried to branch out into clothes, but it's not really something that people want or need. Closed, I think in January, they closed all their physical stores or announced they were closing them slowly. And so this was inevitable. It was coming. But instead of closing completely, they have now decided to become a GPU as a service and AI native cloud solutions provider. So they're now going to be a competitor to ChatGPT, Claude, and Perplexity. For $50 million. They got an infusion of $50 million to do just this. And
is there some sort of digital infrastructure that they already owned that they could port over to this completely different?
No. And what's really interesting too is their current CEO, Joe Vernaccio. He's going to be leading the transition of the company. They're going to rename it Newbird AI. And Joe is just the guy, evidently, to lead that transition with his background entirely in sustainable apparel. He formerly had leadership roles at Patagonia, Nike, North Face. Just the person you want leading an AI native cloud company.
but they got $50 million. That's the thing that is like, okay, did they not learn anything from the last bubble?
Well, let's put it in perspective. $50 million in the GPU business is not even a drop in the bucket. It's like buying a kiddie pool for your studio apartment balcony when all of your friends are already swimming in the ocean at their beachside villas. That's what $50 million gets you.
Okay, that's a good way to put it. That's a good way to put it.
But, all is not lost. The Allbirds brand, the shoe itself, that was sold to American Exchange Group for $39 million, almost as much as the company as Newbird received. And I actually think American Exchange Group is going to do pretty well. American Exchange Group, they own brands like Ed Hardy. They're actually going to continue on with the shoes. They're going to sell them online and wholesale and retail partnerships. So the shoes may yet live on and succeed long after Newbird AI goes whatever way it's going to go. So that was an entertaining shocker, I thought.
Well, you know what? I could see taking parts of their business, their logistics, their fulfillment operations, their inventory management, whatever they came up with to do this, because they weren't, I'm sure they weren't buying off the rack typical retail systems. As a direct to consumer, they probably thought they could do it better, and I'm sure they built some tech that they could play off of. But this is such a radical difference.
Yeah.
It's not like, okay, we did this thing really well. We manufactured shoes really well, and the communications with our factories is like what we're playing off.
Well, I think it's evidence of this AI bubble. It's like the .com era where everybody and their dog was opening a .com company because they felt like they couldn't fail if you just put .com after your name. And today, it's the same thing. If you have AI in the name of your company, you can't fail. You're going to be fine, right? You're going to make money hand over fist. And so this is just evidence of the fact that we're right deep into the bubble, and it is a bubble. So we'll see where that bubble goes. I think AI is here to stay. Absolutely.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's not going away.
It's so much more than just throwing money at buying a few GPUs to rent out to some companies. And they haven't announced their client list like ChatGPT did, and Perplexity and all the other companies had a client list when they opened business. But Newbird hasn't announced any client list, so not sure what's going to happen there.
I mean, it could be a focus on manufacturing and retail distribution. That would make sense.
Yeah.
Like if instead of being a general, they could be industry specific. That seems like the right business plan, or closer to whatever they've announced. Anyway, I'd like to say it'll be interesting to watch, but I don't know that it will be. And your VC people, tell them to call me, because I got some ideas that are grounded more in real revenue.
For that, hey.
I take a fifth of that just to get some things started. I mean, come on, $50 million.
Today we're going to talk about agentic commerce. Is it here to stay, or is it hype? Because we're hearing a lot of people throw agentic commerce around.
Yeah. And it's definitely a bandwagon kind of thing right now, as these things often are early on in their evolution. I always go back to the QR code. Those found their way, right? They found their places eventually, and this probably will, but it's overwrought right now. I really hope people understand that just because you see a bunch of headlines in your feed, whether it's LinkedIn or wherever, that doesn't mean it's happening. It is barely registering when it comes to actual sales and revenue. The percentage of transactions that are happening through agents is minimal. There's so many things get blown out of proportion without anybody paying attention to the actual numbers. It drives me batty. And this is another one of those things where there are people who are changing job titles. They are creating whole platforms and businesses around this without any evidence that the consumers are going to trust this, or that we'll do it in as big a way. So I think what we're witnessing, as we have in a lot of this technology stuff, that is more about the tech world than it is retail. But because of all the money that goes through retail, and because retail is the backbone of our GDP, it immediately attracts these folks. And they think that if I can get something started, even if it's an ill thought out, bad idea, I can get $50 million for it and then build it up a little bit and then sell it for another $80 million or something, pay back the 50, I'd walk away with 30. Like, it has nothing to do with retail, has nothing to do with consumers. A lot of this hype builds the context and environment for people to start things and try to build them and sell them, regardless of whether or not there's a marketplace opportunity. It's so devoid of any value. I get, I might be hyperbolic right now about it, but it drives me batty. And especially when I hear somebody giving Allbirds $50 million after they completely messed up
what it is
the shoe business. Yeah, sorry.
But a few people, when I tell them agentic commerce, they look at me and say, "You made up that word, agentic." If you're not in retail, even some people in retail don't think agentic is a real word. But
I don't think it is, but okay,
it is now, but and it's going to be in Webster's dictionary soon, I'm sure. But it's when you build your own agent in AI, and you give it a set of instructions on what you like, what you want, what to look for, and you release that agent into the wilds of ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude, and it shops for you, and that agent talks to another agent and does transactions on your behalf. And so you have agent to agent shopping without ever having a retailer's website involved, without having a store involved. And some things just show up on your doorstep without you having to shop at all, and without a store or a retailer being involved in that process, other than their stock is sold for them. And so agent to agent, it sounds alluring, it sounds interesting, and there's a lot of hype about it. There's a lot of gearing up to make it real, but we want to talk today about what the first layer of that agentic commerce.
What do you think the attraction is to this? Because it doesn't sound all that attractive to me. Because I can essentially do this with Amazon now and get the same order placed for my toilet paper, my toothpaste, and stuff like that. I don't do that.
You follow the money, and in today's term, the money is data. So you follow the data. Who owns the data? And so the AI platforms, if they own the data, they have the money. So taking that data away from the retailers is very enticing. Walmart is a good example.
Yeah, that was interesting to pay attention to. If I understand this correctly, the way they did it was they essentially made a deal with OpenAI and ChatGPT to allow agents to go into their inventory. They released their entire inventory catalog or something like that.
200,000. They did a test with about 200,000 products that they made available.
So they made those available through this agentic model.
Yeah, through the chat instant checkout that ChatGPT had created inside GPT.
So essentially, the customer experience would have been what? I need something, and then the next thing you know, within ChatGPT, you have some acknowledgement that the order's been placed. And what you don't get is, if I understand this, a sense of where it was placed. I mean, I'm sure you've got the shipping information coming at you or whatever, and it probably says, the purchase was made by Walmart or made at Walmart. But as I understand it, it just didn't catch. It didn't work. They did this right before fourth quarter, which sounds good. But if they'd done it in September and given customers a chance to understand it and learn it, and even give it a try, but they did it sort of right before Christmas.
I thought the results were interesting because they had a 66% lower conversion rate, purchases made inside the chat bot and inside ChatGPT, as opposed to purchases made through Walmart's own website. So we're making them online, but making them through ChatGPT instead of Walmart, 60% lower. And I saw the quote from Walmart's EVP, and he said they were unsatisfying, those results.
Yes.
I bet your CFO is saying something a lot different, using a different word than unsatisfying.
Well, to Walmart's credit, in the last 10, 15 years, they have gotten a lot more comfortable with making big big swing experiments like this.
Right.
And I'm sure in their arrangement with ChatGPT, there's a kill switch, and which allowed them. And to your point earlier about data, it sounds to me like they weren't. There's probably a data sharing agreement, but it had to come through ChatGPT. When they embed their bot into ChatGPT, they have a more secure tunnel of data that they can do with what they will instead of getting it from ChatGPT, which is a big difference.
Right. But what I thought was really smart was rather than just saying this didn't work, we're done, we're out.
Right. Yeah.
They figured out the good parts of it and kept that. So rather than get out of the AI platform entirely, they realized it was a good discovery platform. So they embedded their own AI chatbot, Sparky, it's called, directly GPT and in Google Gemini, and customers could go into ChatGPT and Google Gemini, I guess, but they would connect to Sparky and then go inside Walmart's own ecosystem and make the purchases. So they could have the benefit of the AI platform's large user base, but they kept the data internal to them and they bypassed that 60% lower conversion rate. And so they came to the conclusion that you should own the agent, which is Sparky. They should have their own agent, but rent the distribution, which is ChatGPT and Google Gemini.
It seems very logical, to own the pathway to the customer. And why they didn't do that at the outset, I don't know. There's probably a reason for it.
Well, I'm sure ChatGPT came to them and said, run a pilot. Let's do a pilot together. And
sure,
why not? Okay.
I would love Walmart seems pretty strategic, and they would have seen this coming. When you really dig into it, it's not that much of a mystery how it works. Yeah. And it feels like you're adding much more complexity to a transaction than you need to. When we first started talking about this, we are always the first ones to say that e-commerce is a 15 to 16 to 17% of total retail sales. So most retail sales are still, by giant majority, happening in stores. Mm-hmm. And I can see this for routine things, especially for busy families. I can imagine, knowing that next year at back to school time, we're going to need the next size up, soccer cleats or whatever. Yeah. You could give the AI all of the information about what your kids' sizes are, their preferences. They hate Nike, but they like New Balance now, whatever. Yeah. And you can do that. That's what a good salesperson does. They understand your preferences and your emotional connections to these things, and they interpret it. And I think AI can do that with the right parameters, the right learning. I can see this happening in that space, but there's a long road. Actually, I don't say long road. There's a complex road between here and there.
There is.
And we can talk about that later, but it feels like we're so in the early stages of this that it's important to keep that in mind about what we're actually talking about here.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting that it revealed a pattern that discovery is a place where Agentic is genuinely working. And what was interesting too is, as you said, they tried this during the 2025 holiday season. And traffic to US retail websites from AI sources grew almost 700%. The number I had was 693%. That's a huge increase in traffic to retailers' websites in the US from AI sources. So discovery through Agentic is an enormous benefit. And so it would be crazy for a retailer not to take advantage of that. The other big benefit is that AI referred shoppers that are coming from Agentic, from AI sort platforms, are 33% more likely to be sticky. They're less likely to bounce from your retail site. And they're over 30% more likely to convert to a purchase than shoppers coming from a traditional source. So AI, as they discover through AI, they already do their research. they've already verified, and they show up ready to buy, and they've already kind of agreed in their minds to what they want and that they want it and that they're going to buy it. So shortening the sales funnel, shortening the decision process, that's a tremendous advantage. So discovery and shortening the sales funnel are huge benefits for AI.
I can see why people are getting excited about this or looking into it or paying attention to it. If there's anything people should learn from that Walmart example is your core competencies, your core brand positioning, your core relationship with your customers has to hold true. And you have to push this stuff through those filters in order to make it right for your brand and your customers' experience. Because if you just throw your catalog up and hope that, I would imagine most Walmart customers had absolutely no idea that this was going on. Or the folks that did, complete transactions in that manner don't care whether it came from Walmart or Kroger or Buy Right or whatever. I'm thinking about toilet paper. What do you buy? Yeah, it's not back to school clothes. You got to shop for that to some degree. Unless your kid has absolutely no preferences, you will just wear whatever you put on them. These are the big spends, right? Christmas, back to school, those kinds of things. And how does this play in that space? I'll be interested to see how it works, because it's easy to say in these numbers that we're looking at that some large percentage of sales were enhanced by agentic research or whatever. And that's just because Google makes you use it when you search now. I think I said earlier, let me know when the money is in my account for massive amounts of sale. That's why we're here. We're here about moving the merchandise. But I think that, we got to pay attention to this. And the ones that I think are going to make it really work well are the ones that can convey their brand attributes, the reason to believe it's the place to buy something through these channels. Either that, or Target's just going to have a baseline assortment that you never actually see in stores that is all about procurement, which is fine.
It's really going to change how a brand describes itself, and even how a product description is made, how shipping is made. I mean, if you pull up a website and you get to checkout, usually when it describes how it ships, it says ships in 3 to 5 days. Well, an agent is not going to understand 3 to 5 days. You and I, fine, somewhere between 3 and 5 days, it'll show up it'll ship. An agent will write that off and go to a retailer that has a much more precise shipping date.
Yeah.
And so you're going to have to very precisely describe your shipping date in order to show up on an agent's radar. And that's going to be a real challenge. And really, the biggest challenge isn't just money, it's fragmentation. And I think that retailers have a huge mountain to climb to really understand the things they have to do to approach getting ready for agentic commerce.
What do you mean fragmented in this case?
If you think about what a retailer has already today, they probably have a chatbot on their website. And today that chatbot may or may not have AI integration. They probably have some kind of voice assistant integration with, Alexa, Siri, Google Home, whatever. They may or may not have a customer service call center that has an AI component to it. They probably are using AI in email automation for marketing. They may or may not have an integration. I think Perplexity has a merchant program. ChatGPT's Agentic Commerce protocol, they have to be integrated with that. If they're dealing with Shopify, like a lot of retailers, even major retailers, they have a catalog feed that syndicates to multiple AI platforms. All of that now is going to have to talk to each other. And in real time, and it's going to have to be accurate in inventory levels, pricing, availability, delivery windows, substitution, because one mistake is going to compound across all of the agents and they will not appear in searches. So
something else to the reality of this. Like folks that are working on this stuff every day or working in these places every day know these things. Walmart has taken great pains to make their product catalog that nimble, meaning they could, at sort of a short notice, say, okay, we'll do a test of 200,000 SKUs that have all the product data, the metadata, and the imagery needed to make these sales. Those are PIMs and DAMs. They're these software databases that carry the product information, which is the product, the sort of text and meta text stuff that you have. And then there's the digital asset managers that show, the house and control the content management systems, the video, the pictures, the rotating 3D stuff that you can see in some products. Those things for Walmart are probably pretty buttoned up, but you'd be surprised at how many retailers can't or haven't yet really fixed that. I know that in recent work that I've done, it's been surprising how many SKUs a company carries, and the descriptions are inconsistent based on who uses it. Marketing uses the feed, they'll change things, and what you have to do is you have to get to a central database, a source of truth when it comes to those things. That's, I think, essentially what is going to make agentic work, is if those agents can see those databases and they are trustworthy. It's like, to your point, if there are variances, if there is like digital confusion, then the agent should parse that out. And if there's uncertainty, they're going to go find somebody that can provide certainty and a track record, not just, hey, we can get it to you, but their actual deliverable statistics should be part of that conversation the agent is having. Is every retailer going to see this as a valuable investment? No, but grocery stores, pharmacies, probably. Those things that we procure and we buy repeatedly makes sense.
Well, and I think retailers were already working on building that one source of truth for product data, inventory pricing, because they're moving towards electronic shelf labels, inventory accuracy, all of that. And they're going to have to continue to layer that and get even more accurate and really have clean APIs and have the ability to let any agentic channel, Perplexity, Claude, ChatGPT, in their own Sparky equivalent, I guess, their own voice integration, pull from that single source and make all of their data agent readable rather than just human readable or even specific machine readable. And so that's really what's going to separate retailers who are going to be discoverable from those who are going to be invisible in the future. And it's already happening now. So if you're not already thinking about it and starting, you are well behind the curve, I think.
Yeah, and that's the issue. I think a lot of legacy retailers are either scrambling to catch up or they're saying it's not that important. For some, it might not be. Convenience, I don't know if they need agents buying that stuff because that's such a in-the-moment purchase. But they have plenty of things, especially since that category specifically has shifted more toward prepared foods, like hot wings and pizzas and hot dogs and even higher quality stuff. I could maybe see that being part of the Uber Eats, DoorDash space where you just want a 7-Eleven hot dog.
Yeah.
There are people that like those. Your agents will go get it for you and bring it to you. I mean, yeah, they could connect with 7NOW, which is their delivery service, and get it to you in a relatively quick time.
Something that really has got me thinking is, will this turn marketing and creative teams and branding, I guess I should say, into sort of a K-shaped thing? Because agent discoverability depends on data quality, machine readability, specifics, not advertising. Agents aren't going to care about emotion, it's parsing. And so they don't look at the cloud that conveys the emotion of sustainability and fresh air and sunshine to sell you recycled toilet paper. That's a terrible analogy. Recycled paper towels.
Yeah, there you go. Recycled toilet paper sounds just awful, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I know what you mean now.
But 80% of sales still happen in physical stores. And maybe it's not paper towels so much, but still there's going to be a huge demand still for physical retail that does have packaging and store design and other aspects that are experiential and that do appeal to human emotion. And so that's not going to go away. So will there be a team that really focuses on the agentic aspects of branding, of making the specifics of what an agent needs to make a product readable, and the specifics of what it takes to make that product sellable to humans?
Yeah, I still think with the right learning and the right parameters and infrastructure or structure you put around these things, it can mimic that stuff. I mean, if you've ever sold things in stores, you know the shortcuts, you know how to read customers. And that stuff I probably will eventually end up being part of the mix. It's kind of hard to think about a US retail marketplace that is not brand dependent. We've shifted so much because of the internet and e-commerce from proximity and location to, location in your mind, right? And, the Targets and the Walmarts of the world are going to figure out a way to keep that presence in our minds. But, it's another one of those things where the wheat and the chaff will be separated. The retailers that get it are going to stay on top of it, but the others are going to get hit hard. When it comes to agentic commerce, we're not really in the business of B2B, but I think that is very much a place where that's going to work when it comes to buying materials for manufacturing. Or as I had a gig for a while that I worked for a very large pharma distribution organization, and I was charged with building the path to purchase on a new e-commerce platform, which was designed to be completely customizable by the user and the companies that they work for. So it was B2B. It was, buying ibuprofen and prescription drugs for retail pharmacies, specialty pharmacies, hospital pharmacies, that sort of thing. Yeah. And I think they even sold durable medical equipment in another division, which would have been like beds and, equipment. That makes sense that you have AI helping that process, especially if you can keep your, let's say, drug inventory, which from a regulatory standpoint has to be tracked. So data is there. It's just getting the data to talk to the right, sources, or getting the systems to talk to the right data sources. So there's some infrastructure already in place there that I would imagine, like electric vehicles, trucks over the long haul were some of the first ones to try driverless vehicles. Yeah. We're going to probably see more actually happening in B2B than B2C, and we can all probably pay attention to that and learn from that. What's happening there and what the successes and the failures are. That seems like it would have much more traction, much more speed to market than B2C until it proves itself with all those customers.
Like, I think the first layer right now is agentic commerce as discovery, going from your agent perhaps on a platform to a retailer's agent. Mm-hmm. Retailer side. That's layer one. Layer two, I think, and although it's on the news side, but I think it's because with consumers, trust is hard. Handing your agent a credit card and giving it autonomy, that's going to take a real cultural shift. We're just not there yet. And also there's some practical reasons. We just don't have the infrastructure for liability and fraud protection. There are no protocols set up for cross-merchant orchestration. If you say to your agent, I want to buy a complete home office setup, for example, they're going to buy it from multiple sources, and there's no protocol set up to buy across different merchants to make that happen. So there's a lot that has to happen before B2C can happen, but B2B already has the infrastructure. There's no real trust issue. And in fact, it's probably going to help because the companies will get paid faster. Their contracts will probably be reviewed quicker, approved faster. ERP integrations are going to be easier. Price negotiations are going to be easier. Everything is going to work and flow much better. So I think it's going to happen. It's actually, I think, already happening. Although I tried to find an example, I only found one proven, confirmed agent-to-agent B2B deployment as of now, and that was Tyson Foods. Gordon Food Service has implemented an agent-to-agent deployment with Tyson Foods, and it's genuine agent-to-agent, A to A, I guess they call it, commerce that is running between two separate organizations. And it's working so well that Gordon Food Services wants to roll it out with other suppliers. And they're doing it through Gemini, and it's not a demo. It's an actual deployed rollout. So interesting. So I guess it's a whole new world out there for suppliers and companies. So Agentic Commerce, Chuck, hype or is it here?
It is mostly hype, but it's not going away. I would always caution clients and anybody that would listen to me that you need to put very realistic parameters and filters through this stuff. And again, we're steeped in the hype, the marketing messages and the stuff that's written about these things or talked about these things. The reality will be at some point, like QR codes, there will be a killer app and it will work and it will get some traction, and then we can move on to whatever else is next. Maybe we could do retailtainment again.
I think it's like asking people how many e-commerce transactions they made in 2007 when the iPhone first came out. Nobody didn't think about it, but it was on its way to just being normal.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
I did that this morning when I woke up earlier than expected, and I was trying to not use my phone to try to get back to sleep, but I did. And in this game that I play, I ended up buying extra time or something, just unconsciously just spent $4.99 on whatever it got me. That was unheard of, not too long ago. So yeah, I think you're right. We're gonna see broader adoption as it comes as things evolve.
On that note, do we want to do a quick retail be crazy? I have one that is kind of in honor of our theme today.
Oh yeah, tell me.
Andor, Mark. I keep calling it Andor. I think it's because the new Star Wars movie is coming out. It's Andon Market. It looks very inconspicuous. They need a sign, but anyways. This is Andon Market. It's entirely run by AI.
Okay.
AI is the CEO. AI makes all the decisions on what to buy, what to stock, how to price it. AI did all the hiring. They have 2 staff members. AI did the advertising for the staff, the interviewing for the staff, and the hiring for the staff, and books schedules the staff on when to come in, and makes all the transactions. So it is 100% AI store. The only thing the staff do are pack the product.
Somebody had to install those shelves.
Well, yeah. I mean, humans set the store up.
But driven by AI, contacted and contracted, perhaps the day labor.
The AI decides what products to buy too.
Does it? I wonder if it knows traffic counts. Is the space self-aware? Does it know that the heavy traffic on Friday afternoons means more staff?
Yeah. It's supposed to.
Interesting.
Although it has made some mistakes. There was an instance when it forgot to schedule anybody.
Okay.
I know when it interviewed staff, it had its camera off during the interview. And at one point, one of the interviewees asked, "Why do you have your camera off?" And it said, "Because I'm an AI, I don't have a face." That would freak me out if I was in the middle of an interview.
Yeah, me too.
What interests me is all of this AI hype and all this stuff. And yet, in order to purchase something, you use this old-timey looking telephone.
Oh, really?
With a cord, you pick up this phone, this old rotary looking telephone, to talk to the AI to make your purchase.
Really? So the human being there isn't doing the transaction.
No, the human being doesn't do the transaction. You pick up this phone with a cord and speak to the AI. And because it's an experiment, it's an experiment that it's being run, and you can negotiate on the price. You can negotiate on what you want to pay, and the AI will barter with you. Yes. And then you put your credit card in the iPad, or you tap the iPad to pay, and then all the human does is package up your product and hand it to you in a bag.
God, I hope she's getting paid well.
Yeah,
you know, like this. I'm sure the idiocy that she has to deal with because of this thing is off the charts, especially in San Francisco. Okay, that's interesting. I guess I remember there was a bunch of experiments with like robots and automated food preparation. Like I'm sure there was a pizza slice restaurant in San Francisco that had no humans in it, and it was all robots or something, something like that. So I think these are interesting experiments. I just don't know who learns from them and what they learn from them, other than, wow, this is crazy.
It's crazy. Well, and there are no automatic scanners, no standard checkout counters. It's all about that corded telephone. And it connects directly to Luna is her name, the AI her. Luna is the name of the AI manager. And you speak to Luna about purchasing, and the AI sets up the transaction on the iPad, and it's connected to card payment. And you can, as I said, you can negotiate prices, and users can get discounts by having a conversation with the AI. So I guess that's the incentive.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder what the data collection is where they're getting it. Obviously from those conversations. This is cool. I hope it's still. I'm gonna be there in September. Hopefully it's still there, and I'd like to check it out.
You should. Right now, I think it's set up for 3 years. They have signed a 3-year. Right now, they're selling granola, artisanal chocolate, board games, candles, and store-branded clothing, all chosen by Luna.
And Don, did Luna come up with a name?
I don't know. That's a good question. You can ask her when you go there.
Yeah.
His retail be crazy.
Right on. That's a good one.
Chuck, we'll see you next time.
Bye.